What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming at you with another Atlanta Falcons video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. In today's video, I want to talk about Jacob Tuioti-Mariner winning NFC Player of the Week. But if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you know when I've done Atlanta Falcons content. Hit that like button for your boy. I appreciate you guys continuing to tune into the channel. We are still on the goal to 1K for subscribers. I appreciate all of you guys continuing to share out my content on all the social media platforms. Continuing to follow me on Twitter. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at Jew Talk Sports. But with that being said, let's jump right into the video. So as I was stating, if you haven't heard yet, breaking news, it happened earlier this morning. Jacob Tuioti-Mariner, the defensive end for our Atlanta Falcons, actually won NFC Defensive Player of the Week, which is huge honors for a player that was actually a practice squad player. He wasn't even drafted. He was an undrafted player brought in by the Atlanta Falcons out of the University of UCLA. He actually was, it's kind of ironic, but he was a teammate of Takk McKinley's at the University of UCLA. And both of those guys were actually coached by Jeff Ulbrich, who's our defensive coordinator. He was actually their defensive coordinator when they were in college. So it's definitely refreshing to see Jacob Tuioti-Mariner or Jacob Tuioti-Mariner win NFC Defensive Player of the Week. That's huge honors. He did have two fumble recoveries, a forced fumble, and he had an excellent game. He's not only a player that plays on the defense, but he also plays special teams. And he's just a guy who does it all. He's a guy that goes out there and plays with great energy, great effort, physicality, and you can tell that he's been continuously working at his craft, continuing to develop. And I feel like Jeff Ulbrich, Tosh Lapoy, all of these guys that's been working with these young players, a lot of these guys are really starting to turn a corner. I really think that Jeff Ulbrich and Raheem Morris and a lot of these guys on this coaching staff are really starting to gain ground or gain momentum on continuing to be around as coaches on this staff. I do think that Raheem Morris, if he can beat the Saints this week and we can win a couple more games down the stretch, I do think that Arthur Blank and Rich McKay is going to seriously consider keeping Raheem Morris around, him and Jeff Ulbrich around for the long term. These guys have really turned things around since DQ was let go earlier in the season. Raheem Morris as the head coach, the interim head coach, is now 4-2, which is a really good record over the last 6 games. We really could be 5-1 because we lost against the Detroit Lions on the last play of the game. So he really could easily be sitting here at 5-1 as the interim coach. But I think they've done a great job with these young players. I'm really proud of Jacob Tuioti-Mariner. Like I said, he was a guy that was undrafted out of UCLA, and he's continued to develop. If you go on Twitter or go on YouTube, Brian Baldinger, he breaks down game film, breaks down tape, and breaks down film of NFL teams. And this week he was breaking down our Atlanta Falcons, their game against the not the Oakland Raiders, but the Las Vegas Raiders now. He was breaking down the tape of our game last week, and he broke down one of the plays where I think it was the strip sack fumble play with Jacob Tuioti-Mariner made the play where he caused the strip sack fumble on Derek Carr, and he was able to recover that fumble that he forced. So he was talking about the effort that the guy plays with. He says that he's one of those young players that's, could easily be one of those guys to be reckoned with. I said in my last video that I think Jacob Tuioti-Mariner could be one of those guys going forward that could be the player that we wanted Takk McKinley to be. He doesn't have all the attributes that Pat McKinley has, but he's a player that's continuously working at his craft. In the NFL, you don't have to be the most athletic guy. You don't have to be, run the fastest 40 and nothing like that. If you remember a guy like Jared Allen that played with the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears, he wasn't one of those guys that was super athletic. He was just one of those guys that was had a high motor, played with a very high motor, kind of like a Jacob Tuioti-Mariner. A guy that kept his head down. He was a blue collar type player, a guy that, brung his lunch pail and brung his heart, had to work every day. And that's what I see out of Jacob Tuioti-Mariner, being that he was one of those guys that wasn't, a number one pick, wasn't a guy that was, everybody wanted in the draft because he went undrafted. A lot of the times those guys that are undrafted, like a Jacob Tuioti-Mariner, or guys that are drafted later on in the later rounds, are sometimes the guys that are the most hungriest because they want to prove themselves. And I really feel like Jacob Tuioti-Mariner has done a great job since he's been with our Atlanta Falcons to go from being a practice squad player to now a player that's won NFC Defensive Player of the Week. That's huge honors, and he's definitely taken a huge step forward. And this is another reason why when Dan Quinn was here, I talked about it. He only trusted certain players, and I feel like he relied on Pat McKinley too much. He relied on Vic Beasley, and to me, he didn't give these other guys enough opportunities, kind of like a Deidre Sanat. Deidre Sanat's one of those guys that kind of was in the doghouse with Dan Quinn, it seemed like, and he was a player that didn't get, a lot of snaps and things of that nature. Half the time, he wasn't even dressing, for on game day. And a lot of the times you never know what you have. I always talk about it. You never know what you have on your bench. You never know what you have on your practice squad until you allow these players to get into the game in these pressure situations. And sometimes, as they say, pressure busts pipes, but pressure also creates diamonds. And I think that Jacob Tuioti-Mariner could easily be one of those diamonds in the rough, that a lot of people looked over. But I do think that, he's proven a lot of people wrong. He's proven the doubters wrong. So I'm definitely super hyped for him winning that NFC Defensive Player of the Week. I expect him to continue to get better week in and week out. I expect him to even maybe carve out a bigger role on this Atlanta Falcons team. He could easily become the starter next season if he continues to ball out. But I love when I see players that are, the underdog type stories. I love to see players like that are able to, step up to the plate and able to prove the doubters wrong when they have all of the, the chips stacked against them. And Jacob Tuioti-Mariner is one of those guys. I'm also super, excited to see our Atlanta Falcons players in general starting to get love from the media, because we all know that the media loves to hate on our Atlanta Falcons. The only time they ever, talk about us mainly is when it's something negative. So it's definitely great to see that our players are getting recognition in a good way and not always in a bad way with us blowing a lead or us losing a game. But they're actually getting some positive, some positive feedback from the media, getting some positive feedback from the NFL. And I'm really ecstatic for this guy, winning this Defensive Player of the Week. This is the second player this season that has won NFC Defensive Player of the Week. Earlier this year, Ofoye Oluokun a couple of weeks ago also had won Defensive Player of the Week for the NFC. So it just goes to show you, I remember early in this season when it seemed like our defense couldn't do anything right. And it seemed like, we didn't have any talent on the defensive side of the ball. And we say it all the time. I say it all the time that this Atlanta Falcons team has talent. I say that from the get-go. What is showing is that coaching matters, and the NFL coaching matters. And that's what's really starting to shine through, that you can see that these are the same exact players that were here when DQ was here, but he just wasn't getting the most out of these guys. He wasn't putting guys in positions where they could succeed. He wasn't giving guys a chance to prove their worth. And now with a new head coach, with a new coaching staff here, with a new voice as the head coach, because we know a lot of these guys that are on the staff was here with Dan Quinn, but we see with Raheem Morris at the helm as the head coach, he's done a good job of changing the atmosphere, changing these players' mindsets, and also establishing, his own expectations for these players. And I really think that's huge. We always talk about holding these guys accountable, holding these players accountable. But I think Jeff Albrecht and Raheem Morris have done a good job of putting these guys in the best position to succeed. And I'm super hyped for these guys, super hyped for the defense. Like I said, over the last 6 weeks since Raheem Morris has taken over, the defense has really turned a corner. Jeff Albrecht and Raheem Morris, both of those guys are doing an excellent job of coming up with blitz schemes, coming up with different ways to use these guys, using Michael Walker and Afoye Aluakon on the edge as pass rushers. They've done a lot of creative things since Dan Quinn has left this coaching staff. So you let me know what you think in the comments. That's pretty much all I had. I just wanted to talk about Jacob Tuioti-Mariner, and I'm very proud of him, of the way that he's been playing, the way that he's stepping up to the plate and trying to be that other pass rusher opposite Dante Fowler, because we need another premier guy that we can place on the edge. And maybe Jacob Tuioti-Mariner can be that guy that actually could fill in and be the full-time starter. But with this being said, you guys let me know what you think in the comments. How do you feel about Jacob Tuioti-Mariner winning the NFC Defensive Player of the Week? What do you think of him as a player? Do you think that he possibly could be somebody that carves out a bigger role next year? I definitely think he has the skill set to do it, and he has the determination and the heart to do it. But with that being said, this has been your boy Jew. I'll holler at you guys in the next video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up, peace and love, and I'll holler at you guys.